Yes, very good morning, friends. And today we will be speaking about uh, the what is the importance of urban sociology and what is the meaning of urbanism, right? So, in the last class, and we briefly touched upon the aspect of urban sociology, and which is predominantly denotes to the study of problems and policies in an urban area. The importance of the study of urban sociology is to understand the institutions and structures that make up a metropolitan area to work with policymakers to solve social problems in urban areas. So the society focuses, on urbanization. They develop urban areas, and therefore different social problems arise. And in other words, and along with the process of development of and growth of urbanization in urban areas, so what it solves few problems, but it also creates few other problems as well, right? So it is two sides of the same coin. It's like, on the one hand it solves few problems, and on the other hand it creates a lot of social problems. Either it could be slums, the growth of slums, that unequal distribution of resources, and there would be growth of urban poor, and there would be growth of health inequalities, socioeconomic disparities between the rich and poor, and so on. So a large portion of people are living in urban areas tend to be focused on how individualistic, dependent, and unique, and it leads to discrimination and lack of caring for others. Right. So a study of urban sociology has relevance in the context of wider theoretical problems. And it gives us understanding not only of the economic development, but it also brings a lot of social changes as well. Right. So the urban studies deal with the transformation of the plethora of dimensions, and that between the urban and rural structures. These studies are important because it includes conventional social realities, right? So it includes the transformation of city, town, and community from its elementary form of to a complete new form of outlook. So what I'm here indicating is that this urban concept is new compared to the conventional mode of understanding of the rural area. In the rural area, and you find a lot of the social characteristics. For instance, you find a lot of community gathering, community way of living between different members of social group, and you find where agrarian mode of setup economy in the rural setup. But whereas when it comes to the urban setup, it is not that, right? So you find a lot of the nuclear families, as compared to joint families that exist in the rural areas, right? So this urban setup is new compared to the conventional mode of understanding of the world, that is the rural societies. So this urbanization brings a lot of social changes in the area, in the form of growth of cities, in the form of growth of the metropolitan cities and urban mode of life, right? So these urban studies deal with the transformation of the plethora of dimensions between urban and rural structures. And these studies are important to study the transformation of cities, to study the existing social inequalities between the rich and the poor, and so on. So this urban sociology is a well-established subfield of sociology that seeks to study the structures, processes, changes, and problems of urban areas, and to subsequently provide input, for planning and policy making. So this urban sociology, one of the primary goals of urban sociology is to not only study the social problems that exist in the urban areas, but it also offers certain solutions for policy making bodies to bring social change and to bring to address certain socio-economic disparities between the rich and the poor people. So this urban sociology is always tend to make and offer a platform for the policy makers to address certain socio-economic, and cultural disparities and social problems in the urban areas. In other words, it is the sociological study of study cities and the role in the development of society. And now, and after speaking this, just I thought I should speak about on the note of urbanism, right? So, what is urbanism? So, what it actually denotes, and how it is denotes as a way of life in urban setup. So, what is urbanism? Let us try to understand this concept, friends. The concept of urbanism denotes a way of life. The term represents the diffusion of urban culture, right, and the evolution of urban society, right. It indicates a wide acquaintance with things and people. Such acquaintance imbues this, the city dwellers with the spirit of tolerance. The urban people learn how to lead different lives in different, circumstances and social changes and social challenges, right. Therefore, uh, 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 urbanism is synonymous with the city, right? Because city refers to an area distinguished principally by size, population, density, and social diversity. But whereas the concept of urbanism refers to a complex of social relations. So, in other words, it examines the urbanism examines the social sphere of the urban societies, the social sphere of urban societies. In other words, the urbanism refers to the complex of social relations and how what are the complex set of social relations that exist in urban societies, and what happens after the emergence of those social relations in urban societies, and what happens in that urban societies, whether it creates a harmonious kind of harmonious relations between social individuals, or it creates a unhealthy atmosphere. So this urbanism, the concept of urbanism tries to understand the complex nature of social relations that exist in the urban societies, and sociologists in the first half of the 20 the century on theories of city life emphasized the alienating aspects of the urban environment, uh, uh, and so on. So in fact, the sociologist always tries to understand and tries to locate and tries to identify the social problems that exist in the society. So, in a way that even urbanism, the concept of urbanism also tries to understand the complex social relations that exist in the urban societies. That exist in the urban societies. For instance, and we have a lot of scholars and who actually spoke about the urban problems in the urban areas. For instance, we have Louis Wirth, and he was one of the first and who laid stress on the social aspects of urbanism. And in fact, he tried to discover the forms of social action and organization that typically emerge in relatively permanent, compact settlements of large numbers of heterogeneous individuals, right? So, according to the theory of urbanism, and Louis Wirth, and he believed that the larger, the denser, and the more heterogeneous the population of an area, the more urbanized will be the lifestyle of the people. So in fact, he tries to understand is that so in urban areas, there will be large population, there will be high density of population, there will be heterogeneous nature of population. And in fact, what is the meaning of heterogeneous? And in contrast to homogeneous population, whereas we find a certain degrees of homogeneous, the nature of communities that exist in the rural areas. But whereas when it comes to the heterogeneous urban societies, we find a lot of heterogeneous, communities, because there will be a huge, variety of migrations that takes place from rural areas to the urban areas. And in fact, we cannot say that only one particular caste, one particular community who migrates, from rural to urban areas. It is not that. And we find it different communities and with the different class backgrounds and with different caste backgrounds and with different socio-economic backgrounds, and who migrate to the urban areas in search of livelihood, for instance, in search of better standard of living, in search of better educational opportunities, and so on. So we find different heterogeneous communities that exist in the urban areas. You can take the example of Hyderabad as a city, right? Hyderabad as a metropolitan city. So in Hyderabad, and you find, can we say that only one community is living in this Hyderabad? No, because Hyderabad consists of different communities. It could be different religious communities, different caste communities, different socio-economic communities. That they live in Hyderabad, right? So here, what we are indicating here is that urban society is composed of heterogeneous communities. They're composed of heterogeneous communities. So this is what the Louis Wirth actually tried to argue, is that the urban communities consists of the larger, denser, and more heterogeneous nature of the population in the area. So thus the principal elements of urbanization, according to him, are the uh, population size, population density, and population heterogeneity. So the population size obviously is bigger compared to rural structures, and the population density is again, is much stronger, and compared to the rural structures. So yes, second. Yeah. You find a different sort of community characteristics that exist in the urban structure. Therefore, urbanism as a concept, it always tries to understand the social complex nature of the community characteristics that exist in the urban areas. So um, uh, and according to Louis Wirth, and he viewed that the city's heterogeneity and large size, high density of population, and secular cosmopolitan atmosphere tend to be seen as contributing to people's alienation rather than affording an opportunity for richer life. And he tries to argue is that this city, as I said, that it constitutes heterogeneous nature of community gathering, and he also tries to argue is that this urban societies also constitutes a secular component, that exists between the communities in urban areas, because we can't say that only one particular community lives in the urban areas, and we find it different communities, and because of these different communities that live and share a sort of a bonding, in the urban areas, and that actually brings out a secular outlook to the character of urban societies. So Louis Wirth, and he analyzes that the city as a permanent settlement of a human population of high density and with a sufficiently high degree of heterogeneity results in the emergence of new culture characterized by the transition from primary to secondary relations, roles segmentation, anonymity, isolation, instrumental relations, and absence of direct social control, the diversity and transience of social commitments, and of course the loosening of family ties and the individualistic competition. So it is this socio-cultural context which is the ultimate of explanation of the new forms of human behavior that exist in the urban societies. Therefore, urbanism is a special concept which inherits within itself all the characters connected with urbanization and the urban way of life. The concept was given its shape by, as I said, that it was given by Louisworth, and he says that urbanization is a category of relevant of element for terms, and it is a developing concept as the urban life pattern itself as it appears. So it is a developing and constantly changing phenomenon. And in fact, why I'm saying it's a constantly changing phenomenon, because and this the urban characteristic is not a static, it is a socially dynamic in nature, because what we see today and tomorrow the same thing will not be there in the urban societies. The economy keeps changing. As the economy of the urban societies keeps changing from one form to another, right? Till recently, and the urban mode of life was dominated by the presence of industries, and later on it was replaced by knowledge economy in the form of software companies and so on. So as this economy tries to be in dynamic mode, right? So if, the way it changes from one state to another, right? Even the relations between the social individuals also keeps changing. So therefore, the relations, the economic relations, the social relations, the political relations, and the cultural relations, it constantly changing from one state to another. Therefore, the though why this is where we say that in urban societies the social relations are complex in nature, because it's not simple as it looks. It's not simple as it looks. It's not simple as it looks, right? So therefore, what I'm trying to indicate here is that since this urbanism and urban nature is complex in nature, right? So it tries to project itself as a new manifestations from day to day life, right? So therefore, the relations that exist in the social or urban societies are constantly keep changing in from one state to another. So therefore, even Louis Wirth also, he tries to project this idea as that the social organization of a large human settlement or urban area makes a life style based on primary relation that we usually see in rural areas is very difficult. Typically, urbanites meet one another in highly segmented roles, and their encounters tend frequently to be limited to situations which involves specialized, limited aspects of the person's total spectrum of roles. And it is this role fragmentation and limited integration among different roles uh, which causes a kind of alienation, which in turn is associated with a large number of social pathologies such as crime, suicides, mental illness, and that are brought out about by poorly integrated social structure. So what I'm trying to indicate here is that urban social, societies, as it projects itself as a complex nature, you know, it also, unlike in the rural areas where you find a lot of pampering, between the individuals, because in the rural setup, as we see that uh, we find a lot of joint families, right? If some problem occurs, the individual shares his problem with the family, you know, and with the community gathering that exists in the rural areas. and therefore it doesn't necessarily to be seen. In other words, it doesn't get a scope of alienation in the rural setup. But whereas in the urban areas, in the urban mode of setup, that due to the complex nature of social relations, and constantly keep changing the relations from one mode to another, the individuals sometimes often face challenges to face this dynamic social nature of urban societies. And when the problem occurs, since and he lives in a nuclear family, and even the community is also not that much we feeling type of communities that exist in the urban societies, and here so isolated, so alienated. So he feels that because in the urban societies, and you find a lot of apartments, right? In the lot of apartments, and in generally what happens in the apartments is that one doesn't know who actually lives in the next door. So that neighboring kind of ties are very limited in the urban societies, because the neighbor may not stay there for too long, right? He keeps on shifting his houses from one place to another, and depends upon his job and employment opportunities. So since there is the communitarian life that loosely existed in the urban societies, and individual, whenever he faces a problem and he faces a social challenge, and he doesn't know how to deal with that crisis, and sometimes what happens, when he feels alienated from the society, when he feels isolated from the society, then he tend to commit suicides. This is where the another concept is that that urbanization and urbanism also studies this sort of problems that exist in the urban societies. So there would be a lot of social pathologies. We are using the word pathology. Oh my goodness! See, why we are using the word pathology? Pathology is again the study of disease, right? So that we usually study in the labs, physical sciences, and we are using the same terminology here to study the social pathologies that exist. So what are the social pathologies? The social pathologies here includes the social problems, right? So the social pathologies here, it includes the social problems. So what are the social pathologies? There it could be suicides, it could be crime rate, and it could be yeah, there are a lot of mental illness, and and these are all contributes to a disintegration of the integrated nature of human life, right? So what happens when you have a lot of social pathologies in society? And when you have a lot of social pathologies in society, what happens? There will be a lot of turbulence and unhealthy relation between the individual and social structure, right? And when there is a unhealthy relation between the individual and social structure, there will be a lot of there will be a disintegration between the individuals. There will be the disintegration between individuals that leads to social anarchy, that leads to social problems in society, right? So uh, this is where I'm trying to indicate here is that since this is where the social relations in urban societies are complex in nature, and they are constantly changing from one mode to another due to the impact of globalization, we can say, due to the impact of world economy, and due to the impact of the changes that brought it by the modern modern structures and so on. So the population density or the crowded, physical space of the urban areas also affects both the frequency and quality of human interaction. Thus, when we talk about the population density as the principal basis of urbanization, Louis Wirth, and the scholar, and he actually means that the social density or density of social relations. So, uh, uh, what we are trying to make you understand is that since there is a social density of the population is loosely constituted in the urban societies, they tend to be developing of unhealthy relations between the individual and the structure, individual and the social structure. So this leads to a variety of social pathologies such as crime, suicide, as I said, mental health illness of the individuals, and so on. And friends, as you may have noticed, when you have traveled to cities such as Hyderabad or any other part, such cities, and we find a lot of slums, right? So we find a lot of slums, and many youth also from many youth and who are educated and uneducated or semi-skilled and so on. They tend to migrate from rural areas to urban areas in search of livelihood. And once they find suppose if they don't find it, certain basic means to address their economic challenges, they remain unemployed in the urban setups. So what they do, they tend to fall under the trap of criminality. They tend to fall under the trap of criminality. So this urban structure, it also produces this sort of behavior, right? So since many people would think that urban societies would solve is a panacea to all social problems. It is not exactly true, because it also depends on the policy makers and the government institutions, and who should offer the certain basic minimum employment opportunities to the youth as well as the unemployed youth. Uh, but when the state on the one hand and when the society on the other, they fail to deliver certain promising employment opportunities, and this youth and who remain as unemployed, they are vulnerable, and they fall under the trap of the criminality, and the lot of criminal nature also that exists in the urban societies. They always in search of identifying the vulnerable sections in the urban societies. They catch them, and they try to indulge this vulnerable section, the poor people, and into the criminal nature. And now this is where the social pathology develops in urban societies, my dear friends. So in a way that since this heterogeneous nature of urban centers account of the anomic quality of urban life, in addition to the city's diversities, that fragmentation of social relationships is compounded by the seeming connectedness of various facets of urban life. In urban areas where one resides and where one works, and the kind of job one has, and one's income or one's interest or one's allegiance, and not well related either spatiality or culturally. So in other words, one doesn't know what does to his neighbor, right? So there's a lot of the complex nature that exists between the social the relations between individuals in the urban societies. So since this heterogeneity, as Louis said, that it also resulted in people's clustering into various ecologically significant areas with poverty areas and middle class neighborhoods and so on and so forth. So therefore, this urbanism is the study of how inhabitants of urban areas, such as towns and cities, interact with, with the built environment. And it is a direct component of disciplines such as urban planning, and which is a profession focusing on the physical design and management of urban structures and urban sociology, which is the academic field of the study of urban life and urban culture. In other words, as I told you, just again recap this, the concept of urbanism, right? It studies the social complex nature of the social relations that exist in the urban areas. It tries to study the social problems that exist in the uh, urban areas. It tries to study the social pathologies such as crime, suicides, social unrest, social protest, etc., etc., in the urban societies. So it not only studies the social problems, the concept of urbanism also offers a certain policy, certain measures and solutions to address these social problems, and it offers certain understanding, a concept note of to address these social disparities to the policy making bodies. So in a way that it serves as a bridge between the social problems and the solutions to the social problems, and it offers a plank of platform between these two horizons, and so that those inequalities and disparities between the rich and poor can be addressed properly. So this is the understanding of urbanism. Therefore, there are very various kinds of definitions, that talked about the nature of urbanism. For instance, and urbanism is a cultural and social economic phenomenon which traces interaction between the social and the technological process, and this is one type of understanding of urbanism. And urbanism is also way of life, as Professor Ram Ahuja and others, and who keeps constantly arguing that the urbanism is a way of life, and which is characterized by certain elements such as transiency. Means what? Transiency means short-term relations, and as I told you that urbanism, the social relations in the urban setup, is short-term based. It's not long-term, because one doesn't know how long a person lives in that same area, right? So as I told you that the person may shift from one place to another in search of a livelihood, depending upon the nature of job, depending upon the employment opportunities, and so on. So since therefore transiency means here is meaning it here it indicates is that the social relations between individuals in urban setup is short term based. It's not a long term based, it is a short term based. And it is also superficiality, right? This is also another characteristics of urbanism, is that superficiality means there are a lot of impersonal relations that exist between the social individuals in the urban setup. So there is a lot of superficiality. That means that the relations are impersonal, and the relations are also formal in nature. But unlike in the rural areas where you find a lot of community gathering, community feeling, right, and where you find and address people through kinship relations, right, in the rural areas. But whereas in the urban societies, it is not that. Everything is bureaucratized and formalized, and in nature, right? So one cannot address other person as Anna or something like that. So very structured relations. For instance, you have to call somebody as sir or maid. So depending upon the nature of the relation. So all these relations are superficiality. Means what? This superficiality means this all relations, social relations in the urban setups are impersonal in nature, and they are formally, governed and characterized and structured, right? Uh, uh, and there is a lot of anonymity also. What is the meaning of anonymity here? It indicates that not knowing names, which means what? Not knowing names and lacking intimacy. In the urban society, you find lakhs of people, right? So you do not know their name, basically, right? So and there is a lot of lacking intimacy between individuals in the urban setup, because this is a very confusion state of existence that exist in the urban areas. And along with this anonymity, and this is also development of individualism that forms a major characteristics of urbanism in the urban societies, my dear friends. So what is the meaning of individualism? It is like people giving more importance to one's vested interest, and you don't care. It means what? A person doesn't care about the neighbor, doesn't care about his own contemporary or counterpart, right? So he cares about his own vested interest too, because this urban societies always encourages the healthy atmosphere of competition, right? Healthy atmosphere of competition. Suppose if you take the example of education institutions, or take the example of even employment institutions, and even in the education institutions, this the corporate setup of education institutions in the urban society is such a way is that where it develops the competitive spirit between the students. So once you have a competitive spirit between the students, and all students think themselves individually, right? There is a development of individualism among themselves, among themselves. So among themselves. So it means what? It means uh, uh, everyone aims to get first class in the class. First rank in the class. So as long as you develop, and a student develops this sort of understanding, there will be a development of individualism between the students in the particular class. And even you take the example of even in the employment also. For example, there will be a lot of employment achievers award, that usually company gives to their employees, right? So all the employee thinks that I should win that award. I should impress the management. I should win all sort of loyalty and so on. So when an individual thinks in this way, right? So he thinks because the competitive nature of the urban societies, and it develops a certain set of the impersonal relations and individualism, and the growth of due to the impact of competitiveness between individuals in the urban societies. So there will be a development of urban individualism in the urban areas. There will be development of individualism in the urban areas. Therefore, that Louis Wirth also has said that this point is that there will be heterogeneous population, specialization of functions, and anonymity and impartiality and standardization of behaviors and so on and so forth. So my dear friends, and in this class, we try to understand the nature of urbanism, the nature of and what is the meaning and the concept of urbanism. And just to recap that this exercise, what we discussed, again I repeat, this urbanism is a process, is a concept that studies the complex natures of social structures, social relations between individuals in urban societies. It tries to address and identify social pathologies such as crime, unrest, social unrest in the society, social problems, the disparities between the rich and poor, and crime against women. These are all the social pathologies. So it tries to study this aspect also. And along with the studying of all these aspects, it also offers certain solutions to address these problems. So urbanism as a concept, it not only studies, identifies, and studies the social problems in urban societies, but it also offers a certain set of solutions to address such social problems in urban societies, my dear friends. So in the next class, we will be discussing about many more such concepts, my dear friends. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much.